Now let's begin with the explanation of the poem Somebody's Mother. The woman was old and ragged and grey and bent with the chill of the winter's day. The street was wet with the recent snow and the woman's feet were aged and slow. In these lines, the poet wants to say that it was a winter's day and an old woman was walking alone on a street. She was wearing ragged clothes and was having grey hair. Her body was bent due to the cold weather of the winter's day. The street was wet because of a recent snowfall, and due to the cold weather, the old woman was walking very slowly as she was very aged and her feet were numb. She stood at the crossing and waited long, alone, uncared for, amid the throng of human beings who passed by her. None heeded the glance of her anxious eye. In these lines, the poet wants to say that the old woman, she stood at the crossing for a long time and waited for the traffic to pass by so that she could go across the road. She was all alone and there was no one to take care of her and to help her. There was a huge crowd on the street. Many human beings were passing by, but nobody bothered to pay attention to that old woman. Nobody bothered to help that old woman go across the road, and nobody looked at the worried eyes of the old woman, which were waiting patiently for the traffic to cross so that she could go across the road. Down the street with laughter and shout, glad in the freedom of school let out, came the boys like a flock of sheep, hailing the snow-piled white and deep. In these lines, the poet wants to say that there was a school nearby that street, and since it was the evening time, so the school had also got over, and out came many children who were in a very happy mood. They were laughing, shouting, and happy. They came like a flock of sheep. Here in this line, the boys have been compared to a flock of sheep. The way the sheep always move in a flock, in the similar way, the boys were also coming in a huge crowd. And they all were happy because of the snowfall, and they were welcoming and playing with the snow that had piled up on the street. Children, here I would like to remind you of the poetic device simile. Simile is a poetic device in which comparison is made between two unusual things with the usage of as or like. Like here in this line, came the boys like a flock of sheep. So here boys have been compared to the flock of sheep, and the poetic device is simile. Now let's move on to the next paragraph. Past the woman so old and grey, hastened the children on their way, nor offering a helping hand to her, so meek, so timid, afraid to stir.